Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
He drove the green.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Greg Pickel's done that many times. He just doesn't like to brag about it. And from on3.com, he joins us now. Welcome, sir.
Steve, it's good to be with you. I have not done that, and I have nothing to brag about on the golf course, but I did enjoy the Open yesterday. And, man, Wimbledon in the books and the Open in the books, and that means just one thing, Big Ten Media Days and the start of Penn State football right around the corner.
Well, the SEC is doing its media day right now and down in Atlanta. Greg Sankey, their commissioner, who has a real feel for making the right moves at the right time in a lot of ways, basically didn't call any of the presidents until a week after, said we're not going to panic. So let me ask you, how you see USC and UCLA, what did you, now we were all shocked by it, but what was your thought the day it happened, and what's your thought now?
Yeah, it was certainly a fascinating way that the whole process of that worked out. Obviously, it was in the works for much longer than the couple hours between the news breaking that it was going to happen and the official announcement actually coming. But, certainly I think if you're the Big Ten, you're looking for ways to respond, not just to the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma coming in soon, but just to the changing college landscape in general. And you know what? If you're not first, you're going to be last in this industry. That's always the way it's been. That's always the way it's going to be. So my question then is the same one as now, is just that what else is coming? The Big Ten seems content on sitting where it is at the moment, but I just have a very hard time believing, Steve, that by the time these two schools come to the Big Ten in 2024, that there's not going to be some other West Coast or at least western part of the country teams joining the Big Ten. I just don't think that we're going to see only USC and UCLA be the two that are the only ones that are a part of this equation. So time will tell there, but certainly it's interesting. I think that if you're USC and UCLA, you're about to find yourself with a whole lot more revenue money from television and everything else. Of course, we know how far the Big Ten is ahead of the Pac-12 in that regard, and obviously the alliance is no more, or certainly probably never was. But, yeah, when you really break it down, certainly major change to the college athletics landscape coming soon, and it's still one that I think we haven't fully wrapped our heads around, Steve, and it's going to take some time before we really see how all this is exactly going to play out.
Greg Sankey, though, made an interesting point today, which is the point. The reason the SEC and the Big Ten stand out, and he grouped the two of them together, is that they're the ones that bring value. Is there anybody else other than Notre Dame out there that actually does bring value and increases the number for everybody?
You know what? I don't know if there is. I mean, obviously, I think if you looked at the various other Pac-12 options that are out there, I just don't know. Maybe a Washington gives you something you don't have, or a Stanford perhaps, but yeah, ultimately, I just don't know if that's the case. And I think the same would be said if you looked at the ACC. I mean, of course, you could maybe try and get a school or two down in the southern part of the country, and maybe that expands your footprint more. But look, I mean, the Big Ten Network has made so much money is because it's on so many various, cable platforms and direct and dish and all that across the country on the standard tier. So, how many more places do they have to go to be everywhere on the standard tier? I don't know. I don't have that information in front of me, but I certainly think that, when you really look at where the Big Ten has gone over the last number of years since the Big Ten Network existed, there's not too many places left where if you're in a hotel room or if you're at a bar that, you have to have some kind of special package to get Big Ten Network. So I think, of course, Notre Dame and as a place that would add and beyond just the TV value. I mean, they would just add so much as a brand themselves. But, yeah, I'm not sure how many other options there are, and I think that's why you see places like Washington and Oregon who clearly seem to want to join the Big Ten find themselves a bit stuck at the moment because the Big Ten has to decide what it wants to do.
For a long time, you worked very hard on the recruiting end of it. Now, Ryan Snyder does a brilliant job with that. But as you're watching this play out, you know what they recruited last year. You're seeing the verbals they're getting this year. Do you feel like Penn State, what kind of job are they doing right now stacking classes, in your opinion?
Yeah, about as well as you can do. And, of course, we have, 6 months or so until this class can sign. So, they have opportunities to have more success. And, of course, there's opportunities for guys to walk away from this class like we saw with Marcus Stokes. So I don't really foresee any more of those. You just never know what's around the corner, especially with the way your season goes and everything else. But yeah, very good job at this point. I mean, it's really impossible to reconcile, not impossible, but when you match the 11-11 record over the last 2 years on the field, and then you look at the recruiting classes and the one that's coming now, certainly Penn State's recruiting at a very high level, and maybe some would say maybe better than what their on-field results have shown. But at the end of the day, it's about first getting those guys to campus. And we already have talked about before, Steve, the number of guys in this class of 2022 who might be immediate year one contributors or maybe be ready as soon as year two and things like that. So you feel really good about where things are there. And you look at this class of 2023, and there's candidates to possibly fill that kind of a role next year as well. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but all told, they are doing a tremendous job of putting classes together back to back to back. And now it's about, as it always was, making it happen on the field. So we'll see how they do with that this fall. But yeah, you can't knock the recruiting effort at all. They're number 8 in the on-3 team consensus recruiting rankings, and Alex Birchmeier is now a 5-star on the consensus. Jevin Williams, of course, is an on-3 5-star, 2 offensive linemen, interior guys from Pennsylvania and Virginia. So, I mean, they're doing very good across the board, really, position by position. They don't have a quarterback in this class yet, but beyond that, they have pretty much everything they've wanted and hoped for, and just picked up Tamir Robinson and Tony Rojas, 2 4-star linebackers, so that really got things moving on that side of the ball for Manny Diaz and this defense. So, yeah, I think they should feel very good about where things are right now and the way they've been going. But, as we always talk about, of course, it's about continuing to stack classes and then stacking results on the field as well.
Right. Next week will be Big Ten Media Days. James Franklin will be there with Sean Clifford, P.J. Mustipher, Jair Brown. What would be and Kevin Warren? Let's start with Kevin Warren. You had a chance to sit down and have a one-on-one with Kevin Warren. What would be one of the first 1 or 2 things you'd want to ask him?
Well, I think the first thing that's going to come up probably immediately, but if not, would just be where they stand with this television deal and what are they going to do now that they have USC and UCLA, and are they going to make kind of a short-term agreement with the idea being that they could go back to the table sooner rather than later with possibly more conferences or things like that, or how are they going to go about this? And really, how serious are they about streaming options, and what do they think about that? I mean, I know that smart TVs and Apple TV and YouTube TV and all these things are becoming more and more part of the normal lexicon and things like that, but at the same time, I just don't know how many Penn State fans are going to be thrilled if Penn State and, let's just say, Illinois or Rutgers 2 or 3 or 4 years from now ends up as the Big Ten's Apple TV streaming game of the week. You can't get it on Comcast or DirecTV, So I'm very curious about that, and that really is something that obviously I think all sports leagues, some more than others, but all of them ultimately are going to go this direction. But who does it affect? I mean, does it affect your, there's a disproportionate number of schools that play the Friday night games in the Big Ten, and that's because you don't want to put your biggest draws there necessarily. You're trying to create a buzz. So does that same thing happen with streaming where, maybe a Northwestern or an Illinois or a Rutgers or whatever, they play more of those streaming games than your Penn States, Ohio States, and Michigan? I'd be very curious to see how that plays out.
All right, so James Franklin is also going to be there with Jair, Sean, and PJ. So what would be 1 or 2 questions you'd like to get the ball rolling with them?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, and it goes to Franklin and obviously PJ Mustipher to an extent, but where are they at with both Mustipher and Adisa Isaac in terms of their health and availability heading into the 2022 season? I mean, are both of those guys expected to be ready from day one? Or are they going to maybe have to sort of wean them into the season and maybe have a snap count early with hopes of getting rid of that quickly? Where do they stand there? What is the expectation there? I think that is, arguably a enormous question for this program because, their defensive line is being retooled a little bit. They need all those guys to be ready, healthy, and ready to go from day one. Will they be? We're going to have to wait and see. So I think that certainly is one. And then beyond that, we've hit on a lot of things so far this offseason, be it Sean Clifford back for another season or Mike Yurcich, in the second season of his tenure here. Manny Diaz is obviously here. I think one thing that'd be interesting to me is where do they feel like they're at with the install after spring practice of Manny Diaz's defense? And we've heard a lot of confidence about what they're going to be able to do with this new defense and with his scheme and things like that. But it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. So how much more time do they need in camp to get to that stage where they're comfortable and confident and happy with where things are heading into the opener at Purdue? So I think I'd probably focus most of the time, Steve, on defense, because obviously the offense, we know a fair amount of the guys back, and we know that there's some newcomers there, and we can always talk until we're blue in the face about what will the offensive line be like. But ultimately, there's a lot of questions on defense too, and things to figure out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, no question. Any other coach that in this conference you look at and go, well, I'd like to ask him a couple of questions, and who would that be and what would it be?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to sit down with P.J. Fleck to talk about the fact that Kirk Ciarrocca was gone for a season and now is back as his offensive coordinator, or 2 seasons, I guess it was, but was at Penn State for a year and then spent last year as an analyst at West Virginia, I guess. So I'd be curious about how that reunion came to be. I don't think it's very common in this sport to see things like that happen, where you leave a school and then go back to it under the same leadership of the head coach only a few years later. So that would be interesting to me. I'm curious to hear Jeff Brom's take on this Thursday night opener. Obviously, it's different for both programs. They get to host the game, so what excites them about that, or what concerns do they have about that? Ahead of Penn State Purdue on September 1. So, there's a lot of interesting coaches around this conference, and you can sit there and kind of pick the brains of many of them for a few hours each day during Big Ten Media Days, which is always good. But, yeah, if you maybe pick one or two, I think I'd probably start there. And, you can always get into the Harbaughs and Days of the world, but I think we all know what we're getting at this point with those guys.
What do you think of the Thursday night opener?
It's interesting. I think from a fan perspective, they should be excited about it because you get to see Penn State football a little bit earlier than you otherwise would have, and they're going to be the national TV game and all that. I know that we're so used to a traditional Saturday game, but, we've seen more and more changes, whether it's the big noon kickoff and, your best games used to be in prime time, and now they're at noon if they're on Fox. And, we've seen some different dates and things like that, especially around the first week of the season. We always see some unique dates. So I think it's a showcase opportunity for Penn State to be on national TV, on the road, in the opener. You have a chance to set your season off on a really good starting foot, obviously, but then also showcase the recruits who are, in those cases, not playing high school football on Thursday night, and they're playing Friday or Saturday, of course. So you might have some more eyeballs tuned into you than you otherwise would just because of the timing of when you play. So I think it's a good opportunity. I know it's, again, unique and certainly something that I know some fans probably just hate and will never find any good reason to like it or any good reasons about it. But I think there can be some positive that come out of this for Penn State. But at the end of the day, as we all know, it comes down to whether or not you win that game and your season, the tone of it kind of goes from there.
Exactly right. They also hate the noon kickoffs. They don't, they don't want noon.
Yeah, that's not a big fan favorite either. No,
they don't want noon kickoffs either. You referenced Smart TV, but to your credit, you've made the show Smart Radio. So thank you. Appreciate it very much.
All right, Steve. Always good to be on with you, and we will see you in just a couple weeks, I'm sure.
Greg Pickel on 3.com. Blue White Illustrated.